Hey, gang, this week's episode is brought to you by 417 Helmets. It's collectible helmets and more. Mini football helmets from just about every dead and forgotten football league you've ever heard of. Also, mini baseball helmets from the Negro Leagues, as well as custom helmets. You want your business or your organization represented in a cool mini helmet format? Hey, check them out. 417helmets.com. Promo code GOODSEATS for 10% off all of your purchases. And now, here's our show.
There's another one on Tuesday.
Tuesday's too late, sir.
Do not approach the train.
Let it happen. I'm in.
Ticket, please.
About that.
Hey, you. You're clearly going to tryouts.
She doesn't look like that much competition.
I could be competition, I think.
Oh, we're here for the tryouts.
I don't think you understand. This is the All-American League.
We're pretty all-American.
Who was that?
Show them that knuckleball.
They didn't even let me try out, Dad.
Maxine, you've got to make some smarter choices.
This is fun.
This is something I can work with.
Peaches, I'd like to go through a few rules. Curfew is at 10 p.m. sharp. No smoking or drinking. No pants.
What?
I'm a pitcher, and you need me.
Is that so? Everybody on the team has to have a job at the factory.
So any job?
Max, can you lift 50 pounds? And are you willing to get the shit burned out of your hands?
Yes. And I guess so.
Great.
If you want the game to be more exciting, shorten the skirts.
What the hell are you doing?
Thought that you would catch it.
My back turned?
This is our one shot.
So what if right here, right now, we forget the rules?
They don't get to decide if this is real or not. We do.
Let's go!
Things are changing pretty fast.
Hey, Dollface.
Welcome to Good Seats Still Available, a curious little podcast devoted to exploring what used to be in professional sports. Here's your host, Tim Hanlon.
Well, boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka. We are indeed here to take you higher this week. Here we go. It's Good Seats Still Available. My name is Tim Hanlon. How are you? It's the show, of course, that is devoted to what used to be in professional sports. We do it for you every week, and we continue to be curiously oriented towards all kinds of things, leagues, teams, etc., in pro sports that have come and gone. And we revisit this week in flashy form the All-America Girls Professional Baseball League. Yes, the AAGPBL. If you've been living under a rock, you probably do not yet know, but probably should, that as of Friday, a new series devoted to that league of their own dropped on Amazon Prime, and it's a hoot. It's a great, I wouldn't call it a reboot. I think it's probably a reimagination and reinvention of what is now 30 years old, the movie, A League of Their Own, 1992. If we can believe it, is when that movie came out. A hallmark, really, of a film. It opened up the eyes to an entire generation or two, maybe even three, of this professional women's baseball league from the World War II era and then some. And not to be confused, by the way, this new series with there was indeed actually a television series, very short-lived, that came out of that 92 film. It was called A League of Their Own, and it was created by Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel. It was directed by Penny Marshall and Tom Hanks and lots of people involved with the film. That only lasted a couple of episodes in April of 1993, as a matter of fact. There are a couple of, I think 2 of the 6 episodes they produced is available on YouTube. But we're not here to talk about really either of those, although those were kind of the beginnings of this story. No, we're here to talk about the brand new series called, wait for it, A League of Their Own. Yes, now available on Amazon Prime. All the episodes of the first season just dropped on Friday as we record this, the Monday, or drop this show the Monday thereafter. So it's been out for a couple of days if you're listening to this show live and in pattern. And it is available, of course, for entire season's consumption on Amazon Prime, and we'll have a convenient link to that. If you're not an Amazon Prime member, that link will take you to a free trial and all that kind of stuff. And we are honored to have one of the executive producers of said series, Desta Tedros Reff, as our guest this week. And we get into some great origin stories, not just about the league, of course, but also this reimagination of the series. It's great. I had the pleasure of seeing, it wasn't the world premiere, but I think it was the sort of second world premiere, maybe about 2 weeks post its debut at the Tribeca Film Festival earlier this summer. Had the opportunity to go to beautiful Rockford, Illinois, where the show was, shall we say, debuted for the masses, or at least the local masses, at the beautiful Coronado Performing Arts Center right down there in downtown Rockford on Main Street there, and got to schmooze with some of the stars and the people behind the show. Got to see the first episode, which really blew me away. You kind of go to these things, and especially for something that's in certain parlance, a remake or a retake or a relook or a re-whatever of something previous, especially something so iconic as that 92 film. You're hoping for the best, but you're never quite sure what's going to sort of transpire. I will tell you that it is all that and then some. A great relook or reimagination of this movie and of this story. It's a comedy. It's got certainly dramatic elements. It is certainly actually more inclusive than the original movie was. And we'll talk about sort of those components as well. And one of the parts of that, when I was at the premiere back a few weeks back in Rockford, the 95-year young Maybelle Blair was on the stage. She is a Spitfire and a half, one of the original players still left from this amazing All-America Girls Professional Baseball League. And we'll get to sort of the part of her story as sort of evidence of the sort of inclusive element. But let's put it this way. You will learn new things about this league that you thought you knew. You will be entertained in ways that the movie and the very short-lived original television series did not. And you may even recognize a few folks from the original movie. I believe Rosie O'Donnell will be making an appearance in one of these episodes. You can now drop this episode and go watch all the episodes to find it. But this series is terrific. If the first show is any indication, we were recording this before the full season drops, so apologies for not us having seen all of those episodes just yet. But Nick Offerman is in it. Abby Jacobson, who is one of the co-creators, is back. You may remember her from Comedy Central's Broad City and some other comedic stuff. Will Graham, the co-creator as well with her, was the original showrunner of Mozart in the Jungle, the very successful and amazing Amazon Prime series from a few years back. And something I didn't even recognize too, Will Graham, also one of the founders of the television/video spinoff of The Onion, called Onion News Network, which is hilarious stuff. But Desta Tedros Reff is a writer and a great story of herself, a former lawyer and one in the South helping folks with little means, shall we say, with their various legal issues and transforming herself into a force of her own in Hollywood. So she gives us and regales us with some of the background of this story, how the remaking of this, don't call it a film, don't call it a TV series. I don't know what it is these days when you drop 8 or 9 episodes on a streaming service. But she's a wonderful conversation and will enlighten you as to why this new version, this new series is so important, but also so good too. Other people that you may know, Shantae Adams from, you may remember her from the biopic in 2017, Roxanne. Darcy Carden from The Good Place. is in it. She's been making the rounds on the television series and stuff. Nick Offerman, as I said, and a whole bunch of other great folks. It is a wonderful ensemble cast, and it's enjoyable as well as it is revelatory. And I highly recommend it. And that's why we're doing this episode, for God's sakes. With Desta Tedros Reff coming up in just a few moments' time, we're going to get into the very cool series and the reason for it, A League of Their Own. If you think you know the story, hang on to your hats because you don't know nothing yet. Let's see. Quick promotional message. Let's spin the wheel, shall we? How about our friends at Royal Retros? That's royalretros.com. We love our friends out there in Portland, Oregon, Dustin Alameda and his pals. And what is it? Royal Retros. Well, like the name implies, leagues and, from all kinds of different defunct things of your basketball, the ABA and the Basketball Association of America, tons of football leagues, some hockey leagues, the WHA, the WHL, the International Hockey League, and baseball, of course. And we're talking jackets. We're talking vintage jerseys, handcrafted and lovingly recreated, an awesome assortment of hats and other forms of apparel, guaranteed to delight as well as fit and make you look smart and sharp in your sports doings out there. And in particular, I just noticed some new stuff from a topic we've talked about in a couple of different previous episodes in the realm of baseball. Remember our conversations about the Senior Professional Baseball Association, the SBPA, the SPBA. Hard to say those acronyms. From the late 80s, early 90s. The St. Petersburg Pelicans, not only the T-shirt form and a couple of different versions of that, but the actual Pelicans jersey recreation, which is fantastic. Also, the West Palm Beach Tropics, both in hat form as well as in jersey form. Two different jerseys there for you to choose from, as well as the St. Lucie, Lucie Legends jersey. So three of the original teams commemorated for you there in tremendously well-crafted jersey and T-shirt and even baseball cap, flex hat form. So many things to discover and hopefully purchase at royalretros.com, the formerly known as 503 Sports. That's the sort of the sub-brand now. And yes, promo code for you there for 10% off all of your purchases is SEATS. SEATS, SEATS. That's the promo code for you at royalretros.com. Check out those baseball things as well as all the other great stuff. You will be glad you did. And we have many, many satisfied listeners who have enjoyed and told us how much they enjoy the stuff from Royal Retros. Please, as always, enjoy those. And thank you for patronizing our sponsors. And we appreciate Royal Retros for doing so. Of course, they've been with us for a long time and we appreciate it. All right. We also appreciate you listening to this excellent, fun, and eye-opening conversation with one of the executive producers of this fine, fine series now on Amazon Prime. Again, it's called A League of Their Own. Desta Tedros Reff, our guest, coming up. Here it is. Please, as always, enjoy. I do feel like I have a bit of an advantage because I've seen you already on stage in Rockford. So.
That was a lovely, lovely night. That was truly lovely.
All right. So before we get any further, and I realize you're pressed for time, so I'm going to try to make it as worth your while as possible and hopefully as painless as possible. You got to be sick of doing this stuff already. And the show hasn't even dropped yet as we're recording this.
I don't know. I mean, I think this show is such a labor of love for so many of us involved. Like I never thought I would be able to be a part of a show that tells stories like this, that it's just exciting to talk to anybody about it. And also it's been such a long journey to sort of like birth it out into the world and be able to talk to people about it and not just talk to like Will and Abby and us who are working on it is still at this point exciting, which I think is good.
Well, I'm frankly, having seen the first episode in Rockford at that debut a couple of weeks back, I know it's good and I know it will be good. And I was, pleasantly surprised because you never know really with these kinds of things. I mean, especially when you layer in sort of nostalgia and everybody, can kind of give you a pass when it comes to the memories and obviously in Rockford with the peaches and stuff. But before we get into that, first of all, explain to our audience what an executive producer does, and in particular in the realm of streaming. I think it's lost on flyover country, I guess, in terms of what EP means in the land of Hollywood in either film or television or whatever you call this these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can have a lot of different sort of like meanings depending on like where you're situated. But for me specifically, I was a part of the creative and sort of a part of the running show. So I was a writer in the room, and then transitioning into sort of like through production, helping to sort of shepherd the show. So assisting Will and Abby and kind of like running the show and overseeing production. So I think for like oftentimes, I feel like the EP title is often if you've created the show, or also kind of like if you are deeply involved in sort of the shaping of the show and bringing it to the masses. And
Will and Abby, for those who don't know yet, and there's some extensive press. So by the time we drop this, the Monday of next week, you want to enlighten our audience as to who these two are. They're crucial to this as well as you.
Yeah, so Will Graham and Abby Jacobson are the co-creators of the show, and Abby is starring as Carson, one of our two leads in the League of Their Own.
All right, so before we get into your adjunct into the All-America Girls Baseball League, I want to get back to your origin story because completely out of left field, no pun intended, perhaps pun intended. You're not a native to this Hollywood land stuff.
I am not.
Give us an idea of what your sort of career path and your and how you got to this now debut of a streaming show and all the stuff that you've done in entertainment. But it wasn't that way from the beginning.
No, interestingly enough, I was a lawyer before I became a writer. I had a very different career path. But I was always interested in sort of writing and television and movies, but I don't know if I said this when I was on the panel in Rockford, I'm like a salt of the earth Midwestern girl. I'm from rural Iowa, like population 400. So it's not the sort of thing that I ever envisioned as kind of a career for myself. But as it was interesting, I had sort of kind of dabbled in it sort of as a hobby, sort of writing and filming a couple of things. And then I went to law school, and I enjoyed a lot of things about law school, just not necessarily the law. But I really
you wouldn't be the first.
Yeah, but what I saw was it's interesting about law, and it's the same about television and entertainment. It's kind of the power of stories and how stories are really the way that you move people. And when I had finished law school, I had taken a job. I actually lived in the Mississippi Delta for almost 4 years doing like sort of advocacy work. And it was like state level policy, also did some documentary work. And you're just really trying to change people's minds. Like that is the goal, is to really move the dial for people. And the way that you do that is through stories. And I think also through entertainment, that is what was so exciting for me about entertainment in general. But I think specifically as this show is like the most powerful way to get people to change their minds is to just give them new perspectives and let them make their own decisions. And so I think that's what's exciting about entertainment is you have a captive audience who wants to hear your stories, and you have the opportunity to sort of bring them into new worlds that sort of open their minds and open their views. I was going to say it's exciting for me as sort of like a storyteller, and it was exciting for me as like a lawyer and an advocate.
Sure. So, but since then, you've built up quite a sizable IMDb page.
Bunch of different, different shows.
Yeah. So tell me how that sort of evolves. I mean, one doesn't necessarily jump from a crusading lawyer in the Deep South to a Hollywood writing and/or producing career, and then I guess how does this particular project and the retelling of this league story hit your radar?
Sure. I mean, the way I actually made the specific jump is I had gotten more and more interested in television specifically, both because I think it's such a great medium to sort of have impact on people. And also it took a lot of the elements of law school that I liked, which was like a bunch of really smart, interesting people working together to build the strongest collective whole. So in law, it's a case or you're writing a brief. And in television, it was a story. So it kind of like paired the two things I really loved. And I met a lawyer who was an alum from my law school who was a television writer. And I was kind of like, I want to do what you do. How do I do it? And he's just like, you need to write and have interesting experiences. So that's what I do. And eventually his name is Chris Kaiser. He's a very kind man. He gave me a job on one of his shows. That was my first job. So I basically literally went from being a lawyer in Mississippi to like flying out the next week and being a writer in a writer's room and trying to figure out what that all meant and was. But what was interesting and helpful, I think, about my career transition, and I think I've been on, if you've looked at my IMDb page, I've been on a bunch of different shows, was that sort of, I was trained in sort of the kind of, I guess, the art of persuasive communication, and that kind of works on every show. So I sort of, I like the muscle of building different stories. I think it's fun and a new challenge. But for me, this show is the most meaningful and the most personal because it kind of takes so many things that I love are important to me. Like even just like I played softball as a kid. I love the sport. I'm a Black queer woman. So being able to tell these stories in so many different ways and to tell them through a lens of joy, which I think is really rare for a lot of sort of marginalized stories that are told. It just felt so important, so right and so important. I was just like, I have to be a part of it.
All right. So I want to get back to that point in a second, but we're going to get there sideways so tell me then how this particular project comes to you, or did you find it or something in between?
I had heard about it, but I was actually on a different show that I was like, I really wanted to be on it because I'm not the creator. So I was originally just brought in as a writer. And I was just like, oh, it's just not meant to be. It can't happen, because you're contractually on a show. And then that show went through a transition period of sort of like the showrunner leaving. So there just seemed to be opening up a space. And my agents were actually really good friends with another one of the executive producers, Haley Waringo. And they still like had a spot that they were looking for. And it was like, they were like, would you, because I'd like circulated it to my reps a long time ago. It's like, I know there's no fantasy land of which this could happen, but if in any way, shape or form, it could. And they were like, the meeting came up of like, would you like to meet on the show? I was like, are you kidding me? I would kill to be on this show. And they ended up liking me and wanting me to come along for the ride.
Okay, so why this show and or why this league and this story, especially given that it was given the big Hollywood movie treatment almost 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I love the movie. I think so many people do, because I think at its core, a lot of what the movie represents is like sort of being on the field when the world doesn't want you to. And I think that resonates for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Even I think the film has a lot of like a big space and sort of like queer canon, even though nothing about the film is specifically queer, but just like women in sports and sort of like the otherness quality that a lot of people are playing with in the film. But either way, I loved the movie, and I'd read the pilot and saw it because I came in after that as they were transitioning the show into series, and just sort of the themes that they were playing with, sort of the lens of the comedy and the humor and the joy was so exciting to me. And for me, like stepping into, again, as sort of like an advocate, stepping into the shoes of this beloved IP that had this beloved movie that has so many people, has held so many people as a captive audience. I just saw it as such an opportunity because it was going to bring so many people to the show just through the name recognition and the excitement and the nostalgia of it. And don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of pressure in that and responsibility. And we don't see ourselves as a reboot, this is sort of like a cousin, or, we're taking sort of the spirit of it and telling our own stories. But there's a weight and a heaviness that comes with that, that I think, and a responsibility that we all felt, but it was just such an amazing opportunity that it was really exciting to me.
So that's the crucial point I wanted to come back to, right? So having seen that first episode at that special screening in Rockford, which was just a perfect way to bring the story out into the open for the first time. This is not, to your word, a reboot.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't even call it's somewhere between that and an homage, but with some gravity, and two things in particular that I think will strike the viewer in a supremely positive sense is indeed that sort of shall we say queer thread, right? Which was, I think, if you blinked, you missed even the wink towards it in the 1992 movie, and the importance and or the parallel story or the fabric background story of the African American player in that era. I was in that room when I think, and I'm trying to go back and look at some of the reporting that's happened since some of these other promotional things for this series. I think I heard Maybelle Blair, who is the amazingly dynamic 95-year-old, 95-year young,
95-year young, yes,
player from that league, openly come out.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't sure at the time. I didn't understand at the time, but literally at that event at Rockford, I think that was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, she admitted that she was gay and just the gravity and the importance of that at that moment to the fabric of this story as it's newly told, is very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think actually it was an event a little bit before that Tribeca event, but yeah, this was sort of like her, but still, it was still just as fresh and just as new. And I think honestly, doing it in a Rockford event different, because it is a different sort, in essence, it's like, it is a different crowd, not in a positive or negative way, but I feel the same way.
No, it's certainly more conservative, generally speaking, right?
Yeah, I don't know I think it's just more representative. I think there are certain bubbles we live in entertainment or in the East Coast or the West Coast. And I think, like New York and Tribeca was like, it still was a very public moment for her. I mean, it was huge coming out. But I think, and also in the press, it was interesting. We were just at an event with her yesterday, and she was like, and I'm gay, as you know, and just like watching her, because even at Rockford, she was still sort of in the space of transitioning, and just even over a month to see how it makes me emotional thinking about, to see how she's been able to transform and like step into embracing that part of her life that she felt like she had to hide for so many years. Is just really emotionally, it's just so powerful. And I think that is what is exciting about the series. And I hope that people respond to is that we are, there's a lot of people who are like, we've had a lot of questions of like, oh, how did you decide to like, add sort of queer storylines and Black storylines to a league of their own? And it's like, well, we didn't really decide. Those kind of were the stories like of the All-American Girls League, the Rockford Peaches, that was a real league and a real team, and in the movie, there's the nod to sort of like Black players with that woman who grabs the ball and throws it to Gina Davis. She was inspired. It was, sort of a wink and an homage to players like Tony Stone, Mamie Johnson, and Connie Morgan, who played in the Negro Leagues. Like their stories, all these stories existed and were real. And these were women who were living their lives during the time of the movie. And that was the opportunity, I think, both of the time that we're getting to tell this story 30 years later past the movie, where there is sort of a different audience appetite and attitude for more authenticity in these stories. And also the opportunity of a series where you have more time to go in depth and explore these. And I hope that it leads to, that was like when that moment initially happened, when Maybelle came out, it was like, this show is so much more than a show. It's really a mission and a mantle. And you have moments like that when you're like, it was all worth it. Like whatever happens with the show, however big or small it is, however people receive it, moments like that are what make it worth it. And I hope it facilitates more of them.
All right, what's this? 417 helmets. My goodness. Well, you've heard me talk about 417helmets.com, collectible helmets and more on this very show fairly often. Our pal Judd Lesher down in southwest Missouri, I think in the Springfield, Missouri area, if I'm not mistaken, What is it? 417helmets.com. Well, first, if you dig all of our great football stories and episodes of the past, and you'd like to commemorate some of them in mini helmet form, really cool, sort of literal, high quality, professionally, made materials, but in a mini format that you could put on your desk or put on your in your bookshelf or whatever it is, and just about every league that's ever existed, saved from the NFL. We're talking XFL, old versions of the WFL. Remember the World Football League? How about various teams, both current and past, in the Canadian Football League? But also NCAA teams of yore and NAIA college football teams of yore. All of them and many, many, many more available for you at 417helmets.com. But that's not it. That's not it, friends. There's plenty more to be had. How about mini baseball helmets? Yeah, a whole bunch in the Negro Leagues, and yes, officially licensed by the Negro League Hall of Fame. You can get a bunch, and they're making more all the time. And by the way, custom helmets can be made too, both of the baseball and the football variety. You got your business, maybe a promotional thing you want to do for your company, perhaps your organization, you want to raise some funds, all that kind of stuff. Great custom approaches to both mini football and mini baseball helmets can be made at your command for you to enjoy and to sell or resell or give away. All of that and more. That's the more part at 417helmets.com. It's collectible helmets and more. And we've got a promo code for you too, for whatever you purchase, all of them, all of your purchases, 10% off all of those when you use the promo code Good Seats. Again, promo code Good Seats for 10% off all of your purchases at 417helmets.com. Thanks, Judd, and thank you all for listening and trying them out. And now back to our conversation. So, okay, as somebody who's a writer and is involved in the creation, the production, the ongoing development of this series and the process of it, how do you incorporate then? I mean, you're basically saying authenticity is crucial, and these two threads that were essentially not part of the movie are now being brought to bear, and frankly, with timely moments like Maybelle's, right?
Yeah.
How do you deftly weave in those thematics to what I would argue is kind of an unimpeachable classic movie, right? 30 years hence for sure, but how do you not mess with that sort of hagiography, which is frankly important and brought the league to a whole generation of people for the first time back then without, I don't want to say, but how do you evolve that story appropriately without, shall we say, I don't want to say damaging it, but taking it into places that could easily go sideways if not done correctly?
I mean, I think a couple of ways. I think number one, all of us involved loved the movie. We wouldn't be here if we didn't love the movie. So I think we did feel sort of the reverence to it, if that makes sense. The reverence and the responsibility of sort of, even though it's not a reboot, it's kind of like our own reimagining our own cousin, still carrying that with us because we do all love it. And I also think we sort of held two things. I think number one, a lot of what people love about the movie, I feel like, is the way it makes, like, the sort of joy and the celebration and the way it makes you feel. So I think we really held true to the spirit of the movie. That was really important for all of us. And I think that was important for the film. So I think holding that, and then to these themes and these stories we were delving into, it was really just about guiding it authentically. It's like, whether it is sort of based in the research, orienting it in the research, and just orienting it in our own experiences to try to get to things that aren't, try to get to truth, if that makes sense. Like using that spirit to show new perspectives and base it just in what was real to us. I always say, like, I think when you're telling any story, there's never a right answer, because like it's the creative process is subjective, but we really focused on having sort of the right kind of conversations. And to me, that was like kind of the only way to do it. And hopefully, like, in essence, like you were saying, like not mess it up.
Yeah. And I don't mean mess up, right? I mean, it's more.
No, but I know that's like kind of the responsibility. I mean, that is with anything. You like in your mind, you're like, we just don't want to screw this up.
Right.
Like you do feel that. I mean, that's a very genuine, like, I know I can understand like the kindly tiptoeing way around that. But that was like feeling a strong pressure to like, okay, like people love this movie and we're bringing you back to it. We have to not only justify you coming in, we want to leave you feeling like excited and that we've entertained you even more, that we've taken you a positive step in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You also have the double-edged sword though of hewing to the audience from that movie 30 plus years ago. That kind of is like, okay, this has been done already. What's new? Why am I here back again? But also at the same time, to the completely new generation or two that kind of have no cognizance of that movie nor care for, frankly, because it was 30 years ago, right? So you have two masters to serve almost simultaneously. The one thing that strikes me, and I am by far not a Hollywood insider or a creative genius by any stretch, but it does feel to me like one of the differences or one of the different approaches to this is having multiple characters storylines in this series, at least the one that I've seen, versus the story being centered maybe around one person's point of view, like the movie was kind of closer to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was some of the transition of like what our show is it's really a story about a generation of women, like going through this time during World War II, a time of deep uncertainty and change, not unlike now. And I think in order to tell that, we sort of had to, we brought more depth to the bench. It's more a lens on these women and their stories. In a lot of different ways, which was exciting to everybody involved. And a lot of them are sort of inspired by real people and real players too.
Okay. What did you think you knew about this league? And frankly, can you give an example or two of something that you learned throughout this process that you didn't know?
I think there was a lot. There's a lot.
Alphabetically then, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there was, let me see, like, I think on both sides, like, for example, I think about Tony Stone and I knew a little bit about the Negro Leagues. I did not realize how big the Negro Leagues were, that there was like more than one female pitcher player. And that was really exciting. And also I was like, almost like disappointed in myself that I didn't know my own history. Even just the baseball of it. I didn't know that the league had continued on for as long as it did. I think the movie is so centralized around like the opportunity that comes from like World War II, but the league was like, went into the 50s.
Yep.
And expanded like really significantly, which I thought was really intriguing. And I think just, so much of the movie and our show is the story of baseball, like baseball in America. And it's one of those things you sort of forget where we stand in sports right now, but that, baseball is America's sport because it really at that time was the only sport. This is kind of like before really football and basketball take off. So just the different dimensions and iterations were very surprising to me. It's like, yeah, you have the MLB and yeah, you have the Negro Leagues and you have the All-American Girls League and the factory teams had leagues and those were sort of semi-pro and there were traveling baseball teams and there were barnstorming teams. It was like, there were just so many configurations of baseball that was really like, I just didn't know and didn't expect.
I think it's going to be intriguing to see how this is received for a number of different reasons, but also, this is, again, 30 years on from the movie where, in essence, that movie was a revelation to so many people.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know that such a thing even existed.
Yeah.
But you now fast forward 30 years and just the strides made even in the last 5 to 7 years in the realm of quote unquote women's sports, professionally in particular. There's so much evolution that's happened. And now, I mean, with WNBA games and NWSL games and, on a regular basis, the women's European championship, the women's U.S. national team in soccer. I mean, all these, it's going to be interesting to see sort of how the current generation and sort of the evolved sports landscape, shall we say, takes to this anew. I think it goes from curiosity and head scratcher revelation to something more this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it is. I think that we have the opportunity. I hope that the show sort of takes you in sort of the same space of like what you talked about with the movie, where you're stepping into the movie was sort of a revelation of like all these stories in this league and everything. You're like, didn't know that this existed. And I think that is, coming 30 years later and like stepping in deeper to these stories. I feel like I hope that people kind of have the same feeling, because all this is sort of based on, research and real women and real stories that you're like, oh, I didn't know that there's an eye-opening quality, but also with, I think, to the point of like, yes, we're sort of like 5 to 7, there is a renaissance of women's sports, but we still have so much further to go. I mean, even aside from sort of like having Brittany, what is going on with Brittany Griner and Russia and just the devastation of that, I was reading some, like in the year that Steph Curry made, the best player, made like $40 million a year. Brittany Griner made, I think, 113,000. So we still have so much more to go. And even Maybelle will say it. She's like, the reason we need this show and this series is because we don't have a league of our own right now. So I think hopefully it opens up people's eyes to like all the stories that existed and that they didn't know about, and also that the progress we still have to make.
Yeah, I think it's important. You look at things like Athletes Unlimited and yeah, but absolutely right. And you mentioned Brittany Griner. I mean, to make that $100,000 plus, right? It's not like she could stay in the United States completely and do that. She had to go travel, play abroad too, right? Which is risky.
That's why that's part of like why we are where we are. Cause like in order to make her year, it's not like an American sports where you just play here. Yeah. You go internationally in order to like, because you can't be just like a full-time athlete here. So there just still is more to do, more work to do.
All right, a couple last questions, and I'll let you go because I know you're just dying to go to your next interview. So, give me your sense and the team's sense of the hope for this series. Right? I'm sure you want renewal, of course. But I guess, beyond that, you want to poke through some holes in people's consciousnesses, or give me a sense of like, this, you said it earlier, is kind of a true labor of love, right?
Yeah.
I think you want more than just, if you will, financial success, although I'm sure that wouldn't hurt.
I mean, I think again, it is so transitioned in a genuine way, more than just a television show. It really is a mission. And we really had that attitude that I think is part of the reason, like when you ask why we're sort of like stepping into the shoes and how are you sure, like you, like in so many words, like, were you afraid of messing it up? It's like, we really, I mean, there's an attitude you've seen in the pilot, like to rob the bank. Like it's like, if this is our only season and our only shot, like just like live it to the fullest. And I think that's really how we went into the creation of a television, of the show. It's like there were moments where you're like, I can't believe we're getting to make this show. I still can't believe that we got to make this show in this way, where we're taking sort of this beloved story and we're adding this depth, with having half of our cast Black, telling these true queer stories that we tried to leave it all on the field. And that was more important than having a second season or a third season. We really did want to rob the bank, and I hope that we get the opportunity to continue doing that. But like, what is more important than any financial success is just that I hope that it builds conversation and connection. I always say in watching the show, I hope that people who haven't felt seen, whether it was like in the movie or just in life, do like feel seen and celebrated. I hope that people who are sort of maybe have felt seen before, but are seeing things in a new way, really sort of embrace the opportunity of that perspective. I hope that people feel celebrated and have fun, because that is what the show is about. But it is so much more. I mean, and I think we just all really, really hope to have the opportunity to keep telling these stories, because there is so much more story to tell.
Any idea when you'll know if you get picked up for season 2? This is more a question, I guess, about the realities of streaming and how shows get picked up in this new world of distribution and delivery.
I honestly don't know. I mean, you could call Jeff Bezos and ask him. It's
next on our list.
Yeah, next on your list. He's your next interview, right? I think it's with this. I mean, all streaming platforms are different and use different data, but I think it's usually a relatively. I think they usually want to see how it's launched, and then it's a relatively within a few weeks to a month or so. I think they have their data and then they kind of make decisions. So we're hopeful, but it's like just about so much more than that. And we're really proud. I think we're always like, we need and want another season. But if this is our only season, I think we sort of stand tall and are really proud of it.
Well, we're going to promote the heck out of it for sure.
Great.
Last question.
Yeah.
Is there anything special or unique or an Easter egg, if you will, something our listeners can look for maybe in this season? I think there was a hint in Rockford about a particular person who might make a guest appearance.
Right. That's not very secret. She's talked all about it. We have Rosie O'Donnell came back for a cameo, and it's a really good one. So you should watch out for that. I think anybody who's watching, like we love the movie too. So there are a lot of winks and nods to the film, but like reimagining, sort of putting them in different ways. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you see sort of the infamous Dottie like bare hand grab of the catch of the ball. We have Max, who is another one of our players catch it. It just comes at the end of the trailer, which it's like a moment that still gives me chills. There are just like a lot of, we loved the movie, and there are a lot of those sort of like winks that are pretty fun.
Well, you can't see me, but I am winking aggressively at you right now. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're on a gauntlet at a junket of these kinds of stuff, things. We're going to promote the heck out of it. And awesome. I wish you and the entire team nothing but success. Having seen that first episode, I can't wait to see the rest of the series. And with all due respect, I cannot imagine that you would not get picked up, because to me, the cinematography, the story, the intricacies of it, and the deference to the authenticity, I mean, it really shows on the screen. Like, granted, I was watching it on a big screen, but I think you've done really well with this. And I hope others and a lot of others get to see it and enjoy it and evolve the story as you guys have, I think, successfully done with it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's very nice to hear. From your lips to Jeff Bezos' ears.
All right, mighty thanks to Desta, and we wish her and the entire team of folks behind this series the best, and fingers crossed for a renewal, and a quick one at that. I pretty much assure you that once you watch this series, you will enjoy it as much as I did, and we'll be rooting for its continued success and hopefully pick up for at least another season as well. Again, A League of Their Own. It is available now as you're listening to this. It is available on Prime Video. We will have a convenient link to it. If you are not a Prime Video member through Amazon, you will find a convenient link on our website at goodseatsstillavailable.com. Just search up, he says, this episode number 272 with Desta Tedros Reff, and you will find that convenient link, as well as, while you're on the website, all the other great episodes that we have done over the many years, 5+ years, it seems like many, as well as all of our episodes to come. So that's all the convenient place to see them, to find them, share them if you'd like. But of course, If you're doing that, well, why bother when you can subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast app? That's the easiest way to be in the know and have all the latest episodes the second that they hit the wires, so to speak. Our social media handles, you will find us on Twitter at Good Seats Still. You'll find us on Instagram at Good Seats Still Available. You will also find us on Facebook. You can send us email at hello@goodseatsstillavailable.com. And there's a weekly email newsletter you can subscribe to. Just tool around on the website and find that link there. Name and address is all we need. And thank you, of course, to the wonderful Jerry Payne. Thank you for knob twiddling once again this week. And more great stuff coming at you in the weeks ahead. Please stay tuned. Keep attended to your feeds. And thank you, of course, for listening. We'll see you next week. And until then, enjoy the shows. And we'll look forward to seeing you. Bye.